Good morning, guys. Hope you guys are having a great day so far. Just want to say congratulations because we have almost made it through Genesis. That's 50 chapters worth of reading, and we'll finish that up tomorrow. Today, I want to spend more time talking about the reading in Matthew. And I'm not saying the reading in Genesis isn't important because it is. Basically, we have Jacob who is blessing his sons right before he dies. He doesn't bless all of them. Some of them he curses. And basically, what he's doing is he is foretelling what is going to happen to each son and their tribe. And we'll see how Judah is blessed, and we'll see how some of the others are cursed. And he also gives blessings to Ephraim and Manasseh, who are Joseph's sons. And as we read through the rest of the Old Testament, we're going to see how those tribes play out. And it is important because knowing where Christ came from and knowing how all these prophecies and everything else play out is important. And you may not see it now, but I hope and pray that as we read, that God opens our eyes to the importance of this and lets us recall, some of the things that Jacob is saying is going to happen to him. So if you would turn to Matthew, and today Matthew's reading came out of chapter 15 for the most part. And there's a saying in here that Jesus has that confuses a lot of people. It confuses me every time I hear it, and I bet you had some of the same thoughts I did. In verse 21 starts this dialogue between Jesus and a Canaanite woman. Now remember, a Canaanite woman is not a Jew, all right? And we know that the Jews are God's people. First the Jew, then the Gentile, Paul would say. And this Canaanite woman says, hey, can you heal my daughter? And Jesus has this response: it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs. Now, why? Excuse me. Now, why would Jesus answer it? All she wants is for him to heal her daughter, and he says it's not right to toss the children's bread to the dogs. What does he mean? What is he trying to get at by saying that to this Canaanite woman? And then her reply is, yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat crumbs that fall from their master's table. And I've actually never understood it till today, and this is just what I think. I could be right, I could be wrong. But what's going on here is Jesus has come for the Jews, right? And you have this Canaanite woman asking to heal. And he's saying, hey, the Jews are my children, and then am I supposed to be blessing you when I came for the Jews first? And then she says, God, yes, but, shouldn't I at least get the crumbs? Shouldn't I at least get what is left over that you have given the Jews? And then Jesus says, hey, you have great faith, you are healed. And so this dialogue definitely has something to do with him coming for the Jews and her being a Canaanite, her being a Gentile, because Jesus was here on a mission. And yes, that mission included the Jews, but at this time, included the Gentiles, but at this time it did not. So as you read that again, try to think about it in the context of Jews and Gentiles and why Jesus was here and what his purpose was at that time. I know I didn't explain that very clearly because it still seems like harsh words, and I'm just trying to make sense of it all. And the other thing that I want to point out in chapter 15 is Jesus feeding the 4,000. And there's two different lessons that we can glean from this story. Now let's remember that Jesus, I believe in chapter 14 or 15, he's already fed the 5,000. The disciples have already seen Jesus take 5 loaves, 2 fish, feed 5,000 men, and then women and children. And here he has this gathering that has been following him. And he says, man, I don't want to send these guys away, for on their way home, they are going to collapse. And he's telling his disciples this, and what's their response? His disciples answered, "Where could we get enough bread on this remote place to feed such a crowd?" Hello? Didn't you just see what Jesus did a couple chapters ago? And I don't know how much time elapsed in between, but Jesus just fed 5,000 with 5 loaves, 2 fish. Don't you think that he could feed 4,000? Yet the disciples already forgot what Jesus had done. And I think so many times that when we're in a rock and a hard place, we forget how Jesus has blessed our lives and the things that he has done, and we deem them impossible when really Jesus has already brought us out once and he can do it again. And sometimes we just forget. And I think that's what goes on here with the disciples. They forget the power Jesus has, and they forget the blessing that he has already bestowed upon the people, and that he could do it again if he wants to. And so when Jesus says, "I want to give them food to eat," their response should be, "All right, you make the food, we'll hand it out." But instead it's where are we going to get that? And we do that all the time. We downplay Jesus' power. We downplay God's power in our lives. And the second thing in this lesson is when Jesus makes the bread and the fish. I think it's just bread this time. Nope, there is fish. When he makes this come out of nowhere, he still needs the disciples to hand it out to the people. How dumb would it have been for Jesus to make all this, hand the baskets to the disciples, and the disciples kept it all for themselves? Wouldn't that defeat the purpose of why Jesus made it to begin with? I think sometimes that's how we treat the gospel. Jesus has given us the gospel. He's given us this basket full of grace, full of encouragement, full of promises. And sometimes we just keep it for ourselves. Yet he gave it to us, yes, to be blessed by it, but even more to be able to pass that basket around and let others glean from the truth that we already have. And how silly would that be for us to hoard it and to keep it? When you think about it in terms of the disciples, and they have all this bread and all this fish, if they wouldn't have shared it, it would have been silly. The same could be said about us. God has given us way more than we need. God has blessed us way more, and we have basketfuls upon basketfuls that are left over. And we need to be able to go out into the world and share that with everyone we come in contact with. And now you're probably thinking, somehow Chris always brings it to evangelism. Chris always brings it to blessing others. And that's right. That is why we're here. That is our purpose, to glorify God. And one of the ways that we do that is by bringing others into his kingdom and sharing the gospel. So just a couple questions for you today. Are you remembering God's power and the things that he has already accomplished in your life? And 2, are you sharing your basket full with others? And I pray and I hope that you are. Guys, I love you. You guys do such an amazing job with any task that we give you. And your parents are blessed, and you guys are blessed to have your parents. And may God use you and speak to you today. All right. Love you guys.